I was first introduced to Viksdal Rosemaling on the Vesterheim art tour led by Patty Goke and Darlene Fossum in 2016. We toured 19 days studying 10 different Rosemaling styles along with carving and history. I was still rather new to Rosemaling, so I was frantically studying the types of styles that I could at least identify them on the trip. It was Viksdal that really intrigued me with their twisted tongues, elongated teardrops, the symbols galore, limited color palette, and an abundance of line work. Viksdal Rosemaling style, it's pure, simple, but yet difficult to paint. Next. Here is a map of southern Norway. The red dot is the location of Viksdalen. It is located in Sognefjorden district where Viksdal and Nordfjord Rosemaling styles exist. It looks easily accessible since it's so close to the coast, but that's really not true. Traveling south to the green area is Hordaland, where the towns of Bergen, Osterøy, and Voss are. You might think that Viksdal should still easily be influenced by its neighboring styles, but it really wasn't. Next. Julio and I traveled to Viksdalen this past May to visit Eldestuna, the home of Marit, Elda, and Henning. The trip from Bergen to Viksdalen should only take 3.5 hours by car, and you can see our little blue line from Bergen to Vik. We arrived in Bergen late afternoon, so I planned a hotel stop for the evening. We counted 26 tunnels, one ferry with a crossing every 30 minutes. I just wanted to be on the other side of the water for the next morning. Next. Here are some of our sites. This is the Viksdalvanet, which is the body of water which provides fertile land for crops and plenty of trees for woodworking. Next, we have the roads narrowing, leading up to Viksdal. Next. These are just some of the beautiful road sites. Next. Plenty of waterfalls along the route in Viksdalen. And the next slide leaves us past Viksdalen. Next. Which quickly becomes mountainous. Now you drive along the scenic highway called Gerjefeltes Vegan. This is Lickholfossen, which is a waterfall in the river that flows past Viksdalen and empties into the Viksdalnet. The next slide also shows the same waterfall. Next. Here is a walking path by a pedestrian bridge that crosses a Lickholfossen and leads to a next picture of a walking path across the other side. Norwegians love their outdoor activities. Weather doesn't matter. It's just a choice of poor clothing. If you continue that road just a few more miles, you come to Gerjefelte Viewpoint. This picture is from our Vesterheim folk art tour in 2016, and we threw a few snowballs at each other. And this was in June. When we visited the same place with Marit and Henning this past May, it was cold, windy, rainy, with snow on the ground, and we didn't want to go any further. Next. Now you can finally see a piece of Viksdal Rosemaling. This is an early piece, and it's in the Song Folk Museum. It has Maria's flower, which is in the center. It's for protection of food, clothes, and childbirth. You have simple flowers on the outside of it, which was most likely made by a thumbprint. You have a cross in the center, which is a circle for blessings, a circle for the male, which is a symbol of protection, one background color of orange-black, and the design colors are only two, black and blue. But the blue is actually a mixture of black and white paint painted on the orange-red background, so it looks gray or blue. Next. This is the history of Viksdalen from 1700s to 1920. There are approximately 20 Viksdalmaling artists, but I'm only going to mention a few here. The first two names are very important. Elling Eldal and Joystein Eldal are family with the last two people on the list, Alhild and Einar, and their daughter, Marit, and her husband, Henning. The Eldal family name has 13 generations living in the Viksdalen area since 1759. Back on that list, we have Øystein and Christian Kjelsted, who are brothers. Christian Kjelsted is the father of Viksdalen, and Gert Eriksson Hedel is probably the most famous of the one because he further added more designs and colors. He's further developed. Next. Here you have some of the development of the design by Christian Kjelsted, and he's considered the father of Viksdalmaling. On the farm, summer was the time to plant the crops and tend to the animals, and winter was the time to do woodwork, weave, and fix and make new tools for the upcoming spring season. Christian Kjelsted had a great idea. He and his brother Øystein made the wooden ware in the winter and wanted to sell them in Bergen. Since travel into Bergen was difficult with a horse and cart, they actually made a wooden box roughly 5 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet long to easily carry their goods. The tinas, or the round boxes, and the Oscars, which are the chests, can be stored within inside each other. A box and a box and a box and a box, 8 times. They rented a warehouse for 8 or 9 weeks in Bergen and sold between 300 and 400 pieces. Genius. This was the main source of money. This bentwood box was painted by Christian Kjelsted, and the design is very similar to the plate we saw earlier. Crosses in the center, a circle inside Maria's flower with teardrops between the flower petals. Teardrops are usually always in odd numbers, 3, 5, or 7. On the side of the box, it has teardrops. Yep, nope, perfect. We have teardrops, C and S strokes, which looks like the letter C and looks like the letter S. 2 colors of the S strokes are parallel to each other. This is important. This we'll see a lot more later on. Next, please. This is the symbol page. These designs are not new. It's designs that are mixed from the Iron Age, which continues into the Viking Age, and then some Christianity. And then we have to add some old wives' tales. Simple designs that can be taught to relatively inexperienced rosemalers in the Viksdal area. Next. We have an antique box from Marit Elder. Notice the pegs and the birch lace root. Can you go back to the last picture, please, for a moment? Okay, awesome. I forgot, skipped right over this. This is the most important part. We have Maria flowers, which you've seen in the beginning, in the middle of the plates. You have your parallel S strokes, which are run parallel to each other. They could be 2, 3, or 4. Very simple flowers, which is usually a line and a thumbprint and small little dots going around it. Crosses are from the Christianity era. So you have your cross, and then you have a cross and a cross, and then you have other crosses that become more decorative. You have Mari's cross, or a hexagram, which is a star figure, but it can also be in the letter shape M, or 3 lines joined together. And that's my favorite, and I'll talk to you about that later. You have the moon, you have the waxing and waning moon, and if you join them together, it becomes a heart. You can also have it upside down and fill it in, and you have a half circle. And you also have the circle, which also becomes flowers. Okay, thanks. So here's a box that Marit has. We don't know who did it or the age of it, but if you notice on the left side, that's the lid. You have parallel S strokes in different colors. You have long teardrops, and you have a center cross made of teardrops. The picture on the right is the side of the box, and it's a great example of the C and S curves. The S strokes don't touch each other, but place so close, which is difficult to do. The construction is a bent wood box with birch root laces, and the pegs keep the boxes together. And you can see the pegs on the bottom rim and on the closer top rim. Okay, next, please. This is a beautiful lace box that Vesterheim has. The picture on the left shows the sides of the Tina, which is the C and S strokes. There are two pieces of wood extending upward from the inside of the box that acts like a clasp to keep the lid shut. The picture on the right is the top of the Tina, and it has 8 twisted tongues, which are C strokes. We're not sure why it's called twisted tongues, but I guess it's like rolling your tongue. There are 4 twisted tongues joined together to make a diamond shape in the middle. So now you have a new area, and the green diamond has a few white decorative spots, which balances the white teardrops around the twisted tongues. So the twisted tongues are the black C shapes. So you actually have 2 C strokes joined together. So back to my story about the Kjellstad brothers and their first successful trip to Bergen. It was such a great business plan, and with an abundance of wood in the Viksdalen Valley, the community joined the Kjellstad brothers. Kristen Kjellstad Rosemaling patterns were simple but decorative, and all the painting was not great, but it could be reproduced and sold. The end posts, which are on the box on the left near the top, they were added later in Bergen and the warehouse to save space while transporting the woodenware. Finishing construction in the boxes and painting them happened in the Bergen warehouse. This process certainly maximized productivity and sales. So the Viksdalen community now sold 5,000 pieces a year. Fishermen and travelers from Bergen bought the Viksdalmaling woodenwares and carried them back to their homes up the entire coast of Norway and also into Sweden. So far, we've only seen the orange-red backgrounds. Next, please. There are 4 color backgrounds, and the background colors are black, the orange and the red, which is the rust, red oxide, dark blue or the cobalt, which came about 100 years after the Kjellstad brothers, and also painted on natural wood. Next, thank you. This is a small screw top container which holds small items, buttons, anything of value, and it's Rosemaling by Kristen Kjellstad. I'm sure you can identify the design elements and the colors now. Same designs. Design elements are the cross, the circle, Maria's flower, which really looks like a daisy to me. It's green, but now they even put a red C shape around it. Smaller green circles for flowers, and teardrops. Now for my favorite story. Mari's cross are the hexagram, which can be painted as connected triangular lines. And this is the bottom of the side of the box. This is the old wives' tale. First, the zigzag lines have to be touching, and you have 2 black parallel lines running around the box in the letter M. Mari is a small little mischievous witch, which really means no harm. But Mari can only count to 3. So she starts counting the lines. 1, 2, 3, and then she needs to start over again. 1, 2, 3. She gets upset and she's not able to enter the box. If the line is not connected and the box contained food, she would be able to enter the box and spoil the food. 4 lines of the shape of the letter M are often painted or carved above the door of the barn. It's also said that if you came to the barn in the morning and your horse was sweaty, that Mari probably took the horse out for a ride in the evening. And Marit Elder, who we visited, she owns a bottom section of a container just like this. So to see work like this just hanging around Marit's house was just fascinating. Next. This is also a trunk created by Kristen Kjellstedt, and it's rather small. It's only 12 inches by 7 inches by 8, but it has many different designs on it. On the top, we have Maria's flower with S strokes and C strokes. On the side, we have Mari's cross or the hexagram that looks like the star, and it's painted in black. On the front of the trunk, we have a 6-blade cross, but there's actually 9. That's the circles. The circle on the flower stems from the teardrops. It's the same elements, just more of them. Next. This black trunk further develops the designs, and it's 30 inches by 18 by 19. So it's a nice sized trunk. We don't know the date of the trunk or who painted it, but it was probably given to somebody on a birthday or a wedding date in 1819. Now we have a black background. The trunk looks more ornate, but it still only uses the three basic colors, red, green, and white, a very limited palette. And we know the designs. The next trunk shows us, this is the trunk. Whoop, nope, back one. Sorry. Yep, this is it. Thank you. This is the same trunk, and it's in the center. You have red hearts, which are 2 C strokes facing each other. You have a cross and a web. The front of the trunk has 2 designs mirroring each other. We have 3 circles with with a web, which is cross-hatching, 1 large twisted tongue, but it's in red, green, and white, and decorated with half circles on the edge of the circle, which rises to look like a pretty flower coming out of it. Another flower is the twisted tongue. There's another flower below the twisted tongue. Viksdal doesn't have leaves or flowers like Oos or many of the other Rosemaling styles. Not much from the design elements have changed, but just more designs. There's another little story about that web. It's very similar to a spider web. It catches anything evil, so it cannot enter a container. Next. Now we enter a new time. This is about 100 years after the Kjellstedt brothers. This is Gert Eriksson Hedel from 1809, and he's often credited with the most imagination and the development of the Viksdal box. Many of Hedel's pieces are found in the Viksdalen Valley and neighboring communities, such as cradles, tinas, baskets, cabinets, and chests. A common color is the dark blue, and new elaborate designs from the old C and S strokes were created. At a glimpse, this trunk looks professionally painted. But let's take a closer look at it. The underside of the lid is painted in a different color than the trunk. It's a beautiful burnt orange. It's artistically painted. The inside lid has C and S strokes on both sides of the large center medallion. The center medallion has 4 twisted tongues joined to make a new design painted in green which becomes a cross. We have not seen that before. The twisted tongue is also made of 3 C strokes instead of 2. Inside each twisted tongue is decorated with roping, which is all S strokes, crosses, and S strokes spanning at the open. Around the center medallion are 4 circles of crosses and in the corners, and then roping of all S strokes. The next slide is the front of the trunk. Initials and the date 1865 are encased in this beautiful parallel design of roping with 3 different colors. This is difficult to paint. Notice the bottom border of the C and S strokes in red, black, and green. So Gerrit Hedel is often noted as the last creative Viksdal artist. He took what the Kjelstad brothers' designs to the next level. The Kjelstad brothers sold roughly 300 to 400 pieces for the first year. The community sold up to 5,000 pieces a year. It is roughly estimated that between 300,000 to 500,000 objects were made between 1700s and 1920s. All of these objects are up and down the Norwegian coast in Sweden, transported to United States, and I even saw one in the hotel in Iceland. Many pieces stayed in family homes in Viksdalen, and Viksdalen soon ended around 1920, which leads me to the next slide. The era of Viksdalmaling has ended. The herring business is booming in Bergen in the 1900s, and the fishing industry needed barrels. Well, Viksdalen area soon has plenty of wood, so they started producing barrels and transported them to Bergen. The new Viksdalen community's business has arrived. If their land was running low on wood, they found a forest and they made a camp there to make their barrels. Next. Here starts the story of the revival of Viksdalmaling. Avhild and Einar Aldal from Viksdalen living on their family farm called Eldestuna. Revive Viksdalen. Alvhed researched Rosemaling in 1970s, visiting Sunnfjord Museum, neighboring farms for local family heirlooms, research books, reading notes and registers from Husfliden in 1860 to 1870. Viksdalmaling brought Alvhed and Einar back to their ancestral roots. Both Alvhild and Einar are ancestors who produced Viksdal woodenware in the late 17 and 1800s. Alvhild taught Rosemaling classes at our farm, while Einar turned bowls and made the tinas. Next. This is one of her bent wood lace boxes. It's now a black background. Same designs, strokes, C and S, teardrops, all the same, but you can see how the strokes are different. The strokes are thin, then thicker, and then thin again. This is what Rosemaling is called thin, thick, thin strokes. It's more pleasing to the eye rather than one stroke the same width, but it's much more difficult to do. Notice how close the strokes are getting to each other, but they're not touching. Large white teardrops are very thick in the beginning and dwindle down to the finest of points towards the middle of the box. The white teardrops are painted from the thickest part to the smallest tails. This style teardrop of painting is actually in reverse of all the other styles of Rosemaling. Most start at the tail and end at the largest area. Next. Avhild's side of this tina has intricate designs on that rust background. Alvhild's stroke work is very intricate. Viksdal painting is difficult to do. You only get one chance to get it right. It's very difficult to erase or correct one stroke since it's so close to the next. On the top, we have the six-bladed rose, we have the circles, and then we have teardrops. There's even a little roping in the middle of the black area. You've got your circle all the way around, two different colors, and then a bunch of teardrops. The bottom, you have a cross, actually in a roping design, the C and S curves, and then 7 teardrops within that S curve. And then the teardrops also have like a little hat, the C strokes. Next. Here's a picture of the side of a Tina with the S and C strokes. The Kjellstad brothers only had 1 or 2 strokes. Hedel added a few more C and S strokes, but Alvhild has taken the Viksdal design to another level. This is still only C and S strokes and teardrops, but notice how the whole design then becomes an intricate, beautiful border. Large teardrops are in a group of 5 or 7. Next. This is also painted by Alvhild. It's so beautiful. The numbers 1993 are placed in between the birch lacing. So the design around the Tina doesn't continue, and you continue over the lacing. In between the lacing, it has its own little design. And the Y to the left of it, the Y with the other little crosses, is Marit's signature. This picture is from Laura Stannis' book titled Norse Rosemaling, and it leads me to the next picture, one of Alvhild's rust trunks. So taking the old strokes, still creating new designs. This is still only 3 colors, black, yellow, and white. Just absolutely beautiful with all the roping all around, framing each section. On the top, you've got your twisted tongues, and you have teardrops, more roping. On the bottom side, you have 2 large S strokes on either side, and then you have twisted tongues in the middle, and then more teardrops. This is really hard to paint. Alvhild and Einar have a wonderful farm that supports their restaurant, and also a gathering place for neighbors and classes for students. Alvhild's love for music, she played the Hardanger fiddle, and her Rosemaling led her to receive the King's Medal of Merit in 2011 in advancing Norway's cultural heritage of the arts. Next. This is Alvhild's dark cobalt blue trunk, which we often have not seen that color background. It still has the same designs, but look at these designs. They're placed so differently. You've got the twisted tongues, you have circles, C and S strokes, teardrops, but it's arranged in a new creative way. Alvhild taught her daughter to paint. Unfortunately, Alvhild Eldal passed in 2014. Next. And here is her daughter, Marit. Marit is the one who's continuing continuing Viksdal. We visited Marit and her husband Henning on the Vesterheim Folk Art Tour in 2016. Marit taught a Rosemaling letter, and her husband Henning and her father Einar taught the guys and some of the girls how to turn a plate. During that time, Marit and Henning continued to run the restaurant. Marit taught Rosemaling, and Henning created the bent wood boxes from the trees on their property. Next. This is Marit's cake Tina that she recently finished. Marit continues to Rosemal pieces for her community. We have the center Okay. We've got the CNS strokes, roping, teardrops. Just such a beautiful piece. With a historically limited color palette and design elements, it's not difficult to be influenced by the Eldal family. We borrow pieces of designs from the best examples and try to make our creation our own. It is Alvhild who revived Viksdalmaling's lost art and who taught her daughter Marit, who continues to grow the art. Out of respect for Alvhild and her family, I believe we must always give Alvhild and Marit credit and protect their beautiful work. Next. Julio and I had an absolutely wonderful time staying with Marit and Henning. I painted with Marit and helped them prepare the community room for a family party, while Henning taught Julio how to make a bent wood lace box. Marit and Henning still run the family restaurant during the summer months for weekend dinners with her delicious meatballs or her Norwegian wedding feast. It's all farm to table. Since COVID, Rosemaling classes have ceased, but Marit still produces beautiful Viksdalen pieces, many for Viksdalen community. Hopefully, Marit will find some interested people to start teaching Rosemaling again to continue the Viksdalen heritage. Perhaps there are some of you who are now interested in learning how to paint in the Viksdal style. It's harder than it looks, but with patience and practice, you will never fear line work again. The thick, thin strokes will become second nature, and you will be designing your own Viksdal pieces at no time. I'm going to leave you with one more last scene. Next. This is driving back to Bergen. We stayed longer than expected and just didn't want to make the trip back to Bergen in one day, so we stopped in a small Airbnb 1/2 hour past the ferry ride overlooking Masfjorden. This was the view from the kitchen window. Next. In conclusion, I talked about the introduction to Viksdal, finding Viksdalen, which makes it hard to locate, the Viksdalen history, why it really was so isolated, the color shapes and designs that really have not changed much. They're just getting more intricate and neatly painted. The types of symbols, the symbolism is all there, which I think is so intriguing. And during the question and answer, we can put on a reference page. I'd first like to thank Greg and Vesterheim for having me. Hopefully, you've all learned something about Viksdal, and I've equipped your imagination and intrigued you so that you can start and have the learning of Viksdal also. I know that Vesterheim teaches classes, and there are other different places online that you can take them. I'd also like to thank all of you that are listening. I can't see you, which is kind of weird, but thank you very much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll send it over to Greg.
Cathy, before we move on, just thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. And yet again, like Cathy said, I can keep the reference page up while I look at the question and answer. I see a few people are typing into the chat. So, okay, good. Everyone in the chat is just telling you what a great job you did. So I was worried I might have to go between the question and answer and chat, but luckily everyone's just being nice and telling you what great job you did. Yeah. So there is one question. There is someone asking whether there's any contact info for Marit Eldal. And I think you had her Facebook info on the slideshow that had a photo of her, right?
Yes. And yes. Okay. And the Facebook is Eldest Tunit, and then you can reach them that way. I can probably, yeah, that's how I've got in touch with Mart. It's through the Facebook. I messaged her and
All
they'll
right.
answer.
Yeah. So yeah, if when the video comes out, or if you would like, we can just type in Marit's name in the chat, and then people can look to her on Facebook if they would like to. Do you think that would be all right with
Okay.
you, Cathy?
Sure.
Yep. So it's Mariteldel, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I got a few questions here in the Q&A portion. Could you do me a favor? Would you please review the basic tenets of the Rosemaling mentioned in the beginning of the webinar?
I'm sorry, I was typing in Mart Eldal, Eldal.
Oh, okay. I'll make sure of that. The question here was, would you
Yes.
please review the basic tenets of the Rosemaling mentioned at the beginning?
Okay. I don't. What do they want to know?
They wanted you to review the basic tenets of the Rosemaling mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. Just, I'm guessing the stroke work, the
stroke work. Yes. Can we go back to the designs, to one of them in the beginning? Here, go back to the original design, the first one.
Okay.
Your introduction. Can you do that?
Yep. Well, let me do that real quick for you. So sorry, everyone.
Oh, actually. No, good. Keep to our introduction. Okay. Yeah, let's do number 17. Okay, and let me get rid of this chat that I'm seeing here. Okay. They probably in the center you have the circle, and that circle is for the male protection. So in that circle, there is actually a cross, because you have a lot of teardrops or line work. So it could be a straight line that forms the cross. So around that, you have, it looks like a daisy, and that's Maria's flower. And the Maria flower, also, which is all black, and then it looks like yellow around the outside of it again. And that yellow is a C stroke. From there, going towards the outside of the rim, you have long teardrops. If you look at the side of the picture, the side of the Tina, you have one long S black curve. So that's your S stroke. So it's usually thin in the beginning, it gets thicker in the middle, and then it gets thin again. If you remember what Marit looks like and Olive Hills, it's such more delicate than this. And right next to that black S stroke, to the right of it, is a yellow S stroke. And next to that, almost going off the page, are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 long teardrops. If we do the next slide, I think is 18. Okay, so here's some of it again. So you have Maria's flower. Here's your S strokes that usually run parallel. Your crosses, that can be just a stick figure, or it can be teardrops in crosses. And then they keep adding more and more teardrops and more lines. So the crosses become more lines. And the hexagram, which is your shape of the M, or Mari's cross, which looks like a star. The waxen and wane and moon are actually your C stroke. So when you put the C together, it can make a heart. If we keep that heart open on the top, it becomes a twisted tongue. Let's see if we can find a twisted tongue. Perfect. Here's the box with all the twisted tongues. So the picture on the right, you have actually 8 twisted tongues. You have 2 sets of 4. So the twisted tongue, one of them is actually just made of 2 C strokes, a waxen and a waning moon, that are joined together at the bottom but open at the top. So that's your twisted tongue. Any other questions?
Yeah,
How was
I
that?
was just no, I sorry, I was just going to reshare my screen at the base at the with the new one just to make sure that we're all. So let me just move through here.
Yeah. If you want to just go to one of Marit's pieces.
Oh, yeah.
This is okay. Here, go to the last one of the last pictures. One more. Okay. One back. This. All right. So this is Marit's. So she's painting now at Eldestuna. So you have the name Ava, and then Ava has 5 teardrops. Above that, you actually have a cross, but the cross is made out of teardrops. So you have 5 teardrops put together in a red section, and then you have 5 teardrops put together in a yellow, then red, yellow, red, and yellow. So this is all part of a cross. Then you have roping around it, and you can see that the roping is a circle, but it's also made out of S strokes, which are red, yellow, red, yellow. To the left of that center, you have, it's almost a backwards twisted tongue. You actually have a C stroke and another C stroke. And then from there, you have yellow teardrops. And then the yellow teardrops are enclosed in red C strokes. On the side of the box, it's very similar to what Marit Alhad would have done, which are your C and S strokes and your teardrops. That's a beautiful box. It's so difficult to paint because the strokes are so close together, and it's painting them. It's very difficult, but it's fun. When my son got married, I wanted to make something special for the family who was traveling. I was able to get a hold of Wisconsin cheese boxes from our Kroger store. So it's like, whoopee, I got all these cheese boxes, and my girlfriend was saving them for me. So I painted 19 cheese boxes in Viksdal. And the first box was so different from the last box. My first box looked like Christian Kedstel. And then my last one finally looked much better. So it was an awesome adventure that I had in making and learning and practicing and understanding the strokes and the design.
Well, we actually, the great timing, because we just got quite a few more questions in the chat, Cathy. So there's one that's just asking, what could you tell us about the brushes that Marit uses?
Yes. Marit uses rigger brushes, or they're long, thin stroke brushes. I'm going to jump. There was a question on, are the teardrops always painted from the thick end to the thin center? Yes, which is very different from all the others. It starts at the top where you press down more with the paint, and then you just gradually pull up the paint off and your brush away from your surface, and the line gets thinner. Most of the other, like Hollandal and Telemark and Oos, they usually start at the thin end and then they press the paintbrush down in order to get the fat end. So the teardrops are very different looking. The rigger brushes or script brushes are the brushes that they use. Different sizes of the rigger brushes, which is the script, just long, skinny, and fuller to make the larger pieces.
There's a question in the Q&A about the Maria's flower. Is there a story behind why it's called the Maria's flower? Like, is there a Maria in some story in Norway or in Viksdaling, or?
I don't know if there's a story there. There probably should be a good old wives' tale with that one too, but the Maria's flower is just more for protection for females. Maybe female being, flowers, but the female. It's also often painted on the headboard while a woman is given childbirth, or on a crib or a cradle where the children will be, a newborn would be sleeping. So it's also for protection.
Thank you.
I'll have to investigate that.
Yeah, if you get an answer by the time the video gets sent to YouTube and we send out a recording link, maybe we'll be able to add that answer to that email we send out. But yeah, hey, no rush. If you can't, sure, people could reach out to someone else if they needed to. Maybe Marit would know if people reach out to them on Facebook.
Right. Yeah, I'll reach out to her.
Yeah. Do other styles of Rosemaling use these same symbols, or is Viksdal the only one that uses this style of the symbols?
Boy, Patty Goke will probably be a better person to answer that one. I tell him I don't. At this point, off the top of my head, I'd say no. However, Nordfjord, which is most similar to Viksdalen, uses a lot of geometrical shapes. So they might have some of the symbolism in that.
Oh, thank you.
And I know Patty's given a Nordfjord class.
Yes. You're doing my job for me there, Cathy.
I am.
We got one more question in the Q&A function. Please feel free, anyone, to continue asking a question if anything pops up. But so far, we're down to just the last one. This one is, does the roping have a meaning? Like the roping style does have like a symbolism, you know how all the Maria's flower has protection and there's others. Does the roping mean anything?
From what I know, no. I think it's just more decorative.